Alright, gang, welcome back. It brings me so much pleasure that this little stupid community is what it is. Logan, I know you're melting down inside, and reality is unraveling around you. You're a gem for doing silly jokes in the interim. We appreciate you. We love you. You're in the nest now. You're in the silly place because we're about to have fun. I know we can't all be together right now, but together somehow we still are. Let me do what I do for a living and take you on a journey. Now, as I'm talking, I'm going to be looking here, this direction, like this, periodically glancing, to check my notes. There are 4 pages of them. I want to make sure all of my dates and names and numbers are correct. Do you roll for initiative? If you can make the chat do it, yes. Okay, let me catch up real quick. Yep, that's how a toilet works. Confirmed, confirmed. Reach inside, pull the chain. Wife is grounding. Beautiful. Everything but the wife is driving you crazy, Logan, we know. On behalf of chat, we, the chat, would like to thank the chat for answering the chat's questions. Rob, couldn't have put it better myself. AJ, we never left you. You welcome back. I am welcome back. As you can see, I've made some room in the background. Not sure what happened to the camera. I was moving some things around, so it's possible that I gloved it up a little bit. You want it right about there. That's good. That's good. Okay. Audio's still good for me? Am I a little loud? Am I okay? We'll just assume I'm okay. If I'm too loud, somebody yell, shut up. I don't have my earmuffs on, so this is just my presenter voice. I'm talking over the air conditioner right there. Okay, notes. We have volume control. That's a fair point. Fair point. Okay, I need to resize this window just a little. Perfect. Okay. So, first of all, I want to talk about Judge Voice. No, I'm not using Judge Voice. I don't have to give draft instructions over 3,000 other people playing Human Tetris in the same room as me with a 40-foot ceiling. But good point, Rob. I'm using my teacher voice. It's one step down from the Judge Voice. Okay, so I want to recap. How did we get to here? When we first started streaming, we were just we're still having fun, right? Where we were just kind of screwing around, playing silly games, wanting to share, Zephrine and I, wanting to share the things that inspired silliness and play in us. And one of the things that I love more than anything else, but was immediately concerned with, because I'm an idiot, was garbage. I love trash. I love trash. So I had to come up with a complicated way to work trash in. Now, I know if you just looked at the stream today, you'd be like, this is all garbage. Yes. At least the stuff I do. Stuff Zephrine does is adorable and soul healing. And that's her jam. That's her bard's voice. My bard's voice is making you really interested in shit you should reasonably have no interest in. And I found that through the community rewards in an 8-game wheel that when we hit basic benchmarks to kind of grow the channel and try to hit affiliate, would be something that I could just pontificate about. Something fun. About that time, I was also putting new shelving in our studio, organizing the games, and the thought occurred to me as I was combing through these things that I owned. Periodically, I'd be like, I'd look at a game and I'd think to myself about like what it would feel like to play it, and it was a lot of like, oh man, oh good memories, oh I should play this game again. And every once in a great while, I would go, ugh. Such highlights from the Series 1 Redemption Wheel: Rumble Roses XX and Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball, games which I owned for professional reasons, but still owned nonetheless. Those were games I was unfortunately ashamed to own, but even the worst games aren't bad because there's a story about how they got to be that way, and there's the value. And that's that little nugget I latched onto. And I dare say we had some good times with those games. Oh, goodness. It's true. So now I want to talk about Series 2. So Series 2, we've kind of established our footing. I know how to use Twitch a little bit. I know how to deal with the comers and goers that come into our little community. Get added to the community like Pokemon sometimes, or just pop in when we're doing a elevator action or something like that. So I kind of understand the flow a little better. I understand how to use Twitch better. So as we're doing Series 2, one of my concerns with Series 1 is that we really blew through the games pretty fast. Now, I'm not going to make them significantly harder to achieve, but I am moving the line a little bit forward. So in the past, we used the basic Twitch benchmarks, and we created some of our own continuous chatters, etc. I'm not opposed to adding community-created benchmarks in the future, but to begin, we have 4 ways to spin the wheel. Let me look at my goals. There it is. Okay. So we're using the 3 basic goals on Twitch. Moving the goalpost, exactly what a Confederate would do. I'm a brown coat, brother. Okay, so we're sticking with the follower one. Now, these will get further out as they're hit. I moved these, I don't know, when I thought I was going to be ready to go, before a dear friend of mine put a worm in my ear that changed my perspective on what this could be, and I crafted it into a masterpiece. So I'm leaving all these goals as is, and some progress has been made. I don't want to take that away from us. That'll give us some good early hits. That is our follower goal. It went from 40 to 60, and in the time we've gotten up to 52. So the line is still at 60 followers. 8 to go. Okay? Subscriptions, instead of every 10, I made it every 25. Well, we're 15 into that, so 10 more subscriptions. We hit one. And bits. Bits, I moved from 1,000 to 5,000, but in that time, we had some friends really enjoy Final Fantasy X, and we are at 1,300 of 5,000, so that's 3,700 bits to go to spin. And the eagle-minded of you may notice that I said 4, and those are just the 3 basic Twitch ones. So, eyes on the screen, gang, because I'm going to turn our tip jar back on, and here's a community goal to sow good in the world. I would love it if everybody just gave me their money. But everybody here's subbed. We appreciate you. You're already giving me your money. You're giving Zephyrin your money. You're giving the bards your money. I've talked about this with Zephyrin, and we usually use the tip jar to fund improvements on the channel. This is funding improvements in the community. So fill this up. We'll spin the wheel. Send a Red Wings hoodie to England. We made a new Pokemon entry in our Pokedex in terms of Mr. Angry Carver, who exclusively wears American sports apparel, hilariously enough. Right? After very normally asking a stranger what size of flesh they were, I've priced out an officially licensed Red Wings hoodie from the team store and shipping to Wells, Somerset, England. And we're looking at $103.68. Yes, they did attempt to be a good lad and buy a Red Wings hoodie, but failed. Their transaction was canceled by the seller and could not figure out an affordable way to import a Red Wings hoodie. This is Hockey Town, baby. I think we can come together and we can make it happen. So that's going to be living down there till we fill it up. Hit one of those 4 benchmarks, we're spinning. Where's my notes? All right. So, Series 2. Harder goals, more catastrophic games. So I initially conceived of this list as just like, what are some really legendarily painful games? And I'll just play those. I was a fool. I limited my vision. I was over at a buddy's house maybe a month ago. I was doing some light electrical and helping him like Do good, get rewards. Tip jar is back. Yes, AJ, excellent use of announcement powers. Best mod. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You're amazing. And we're driving home, we're talking video games, and he and I are talking about doing a limited run podcast, just the two of us, just talking like deep dives into weird gaming history. And I bounced something off him. I was like, hey, I'm thinking about reloading the wheel for my the Twitch streaming that Zeph and I do. And this is kind of my idea. Like, I want each one. So here's what I want. I want maximum diversity in systems. I want diversity in why bad. And I want things that are super, super important, all for different reasons. I want a great spread on this. And I was kind of bouncing a few off him, and he's like, oh my god, yes, oh my god, yes. And I had some others that I thought were good, but they're because I had them already. And he's like, he opened my eyes. He's like, well, we'll talk about it later. He gave me some information of something that existed, and he's like, why don't you just do that? And I was like, holy shit. I was holding myself back. I was the idiot. I'm not the fool anymore. I'm the magician. I have all the tools to make this happen. So I scrapped most of the list. I had games that were in there as placeholders. They got replaced over time. So first of all, I want to talk about a couple of games that were on the list that have been replaced. They've been pulled off. They're on the bench. This list is not exhaustive, but just an example of some of the things that I was considering before I realized I could be amazing. The first one is Rocky for the PS2. Yes, that Rocky, like the boxing movie. Rocky is from a time before patches were a thing at all. Yes, the PS2 could connect to the internet. It required an aftermarket add-on, it was an OEM part, a NIC card, NIC basically, a network interface card. And then you could play your SOCOMs online. So it did technically connect to the internet, but it wasn't standard, and nobody made patches for games. Once it was printed to disk, that's it. Rocky is the buggiest fucking game I have ever played in my life. We may play it later just to see what happens. We're talking wireframe models that just turn into spaghetti mid-fight. We're talking like GIFs that are supposed to be the crowd going like through a series of animations that just get stretched all stupid and just don't work. We're talking boxers melting into the floor. This game is insane. I put in a bunch of work to unlock a bunch of content because the starting stuff was tested. The stuff you unlock along the way didn't have time to be tested, and that shit's all broken. The problem with the game like that is you're relying on the bugs to manifest live, and it can be kind of tough, so I don't know. It was always kind of like, it was going to be my lead-off game. And then I bumped it, and then I thought about crafting it around Rocky, crafting my list of 8 games, kind of like a boxing match. There's that first blow, and then you kind of juke in place. So I might walk you through that if that slips out. I've run through the script probably about 30 or 40 times through different iterations. So I apologize. That's why I'm making boxing references if it happens. Another one is, okay, I learned a valuable lesson in the early 2010s, and that was, don't trust good studios to make games that they don't make. And by that, I mean the game Brink by Bethesda, the Elder Scrolls people. They make first-person fantasy adventures, but they made a game called Brink that was a team-based first-person shooter. Bethesda doesn't make shooting games. I paid full price on day one for Brink, and it was an appalling gaming experience. The game was just thin, crappy. But it wasn't Brink that was on the list. I tell you about Brink because a game that was on the list was a first-person shooter made in-house by Nintendo. The game is called Geist, and it is on the GameCube. Again, another game we might experience. This one has frustrated me greatly in the past. It's a wild ride. I also had Metroid Other M on the list. From the makers of Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball comes a Metroid game. It's a weird, weird combination of things. But it was cut. There were several other games on the list that were also cut. We're not going to worry about that right now if they're not on the list. Well, there's my water. So I also need to talk to you about a company that is going to be very important to our journey today. Yes, Rob, you're Metroid. It is a super sexist Metroid with a female protagonist, which does probably make Zephyrine tummy uncomfortable even to think about. Okay, so our friend that we need to know about, because I like to delve into the weird waybacks, surprising no one, we need to know about a company called Limited Run Games. Limited Run Games does two things. They produce physical media, but they do two main functions in that area. The first one is that they give small or independent studios that produce digitally, like probably for Steam, right, a means to have a limited, one-printing physical release. That's a good thing. The other thing they do, thing number 2, that is core to their mission, is they secure licensing and reprint games that are considered lost media. Okay? So it's important that we keep Limited Run in mind, because they are going to be helping us on our journey. As I said, 8 systems are going to be represented today. 2 of those systems are going to be represented by way of the Nintendo Switch, with the assistance of our friends at Limited Run Games. It is what it is. Oh god, now we come to the pain wheel. I will say that on this list are 2 games that I have been searching for in the wild for, I shit you not, I've done the math, 20 years. 20 years I have been searching for 2 of these games, and when I thought, well, I don't have them, then my mind was open. I'm like, what if I put them on the wheel? For the first time in 20 years, not one, but both of them have arrived in front of me in working order. That's more than half a Logan. Oh, my bones are turning to dust. Okay, so we are going to begin our journey. Everybody put on your tin pants. As we begin, we have to go back to the year 2003. Oh, and I want to say, these are not in any particular order. These are just in a way that I thought the weaving of the story would come together. So to use our Rocky metaphor, this is coming out hard and landing a fucking brain shot with that first cross. Walk out, pow! Knock 'em senseless. 2003. This game is on the original Xbox. The dear friend that brought us Breakdown and Dead or Alive Extreme Volleyball. Okay, the lesson learned in this game is how not to make a multimedia franchise. And by that, I mean your traditional things that maybe they start as a comic book, and the comic book does well, so then maybe they get a cartoon show, a Saturday morning cartoon. And then from there, maybe it's a video game, or a feature-length direct-to-video movie. But you add these elements to this intellectual property. This game tried to make all of it at once. They were making a video game, they were making a comic book, and they were making a children's cartoon show. None of it was out. All 3 lanes were in production. And for reasons unknown, the item they chose to lead the charge, and not just lead the charge, but to establish the brand and to fund finishing developing the comic book and the TV show, which were very expensive to produce because we're still in the era of hand-drawn animation, was the video game. Okay. The problem was They budgeted for the video game because the comic book and because the TV show were quite expensive. They budgeted the video game to be a budget title. And if anybody's unfamiliar with the term budget title, it's the game that might at that time have might have launched at like your big game store for $20. It's not super long, it's not super involved, but if done right, there are plenty of great budget titles out there. Adding to that, as development continued, these people figured out that, oh, cartoons are really, really expensive, so we actually have to take a little bit more money away from the video game. Oh, the comic, oh god, I guess, yeah, we didn't think about, we're going to warehouse all these comic books before they're ready to distribute. Take a little more money from the video game. That's a problem. The other problem was this emerging trend in video games from a couple of studios that were trying to figure out the dual stick design. Because before the original Xbox generation, there was, the PlayStation 1? It had no thumbsticks, initially. There were DualShock controllers later, they weren't very good. The N64, one stick. The Dreamcast, I know that's moving forward a generation, but still only one stick. What do? The Sega Saturn, no sticks. So they were trying to figure out how to use two sticks. We hadn't landed on one stick move, one stick camera. No. So this game's controls have one stick move, one stick auto target. It is something called flick to aim. So for example, I'll just use my Xbox controller as an example here. Using the right stick, you would flick in a direction, and it would both auto-target and spin the camera to stay over the shoulder third person, or behind the character third person. Now, if you don't like spinning cameras, imagine how that would be. Also, direction is kind of vague, because this game is sort of a bullet hell shoot 'em up, and there can be lots of guys over there. Whichever guy you land on is whichever one you exactly push towards according to the inputs of the controller. It might be the closest guy to you, but it could also be a guy who just spawned behind that guy but slightly to the right, and you did not have stick-perfect precision. What a nightmare. Now, for that reason, and the other reasons I've also described, I had considered, instead of this game, playing a game called Advent Rising. Original Xbox has all the other problems we talked about, but instead of being part of a larger multimedia franchise, it was funded to be a trilogy of Mass Effect-like space opera games, and was even written by the author of Ender's Game. This thing had a budget. The reason I chose not to go with it is because it's really slow, and could turn into, way too many streams. And another reason why I want these goalposts set kind of far is that some of these games could turn into multi-stream games. We are here for the experience. You pay for it, you're getting it. Flick to Aim lived and died very publicly and very quickly. It's just a bad way to do it when you could just be Halo and be like, no, just move, look, done. Or in third-person mode, move, camera. Very easy. And it's the standard to today, really. But we're in the Wild West, we were still figuring out new controls. See, I don't fault them too much for that. Here are some things that people at the time had to say about it. Electronic Gaming Monthly was an extremely popular video game periodical, or magazine, if you're nasty. They said, quote, outright broken. X-Play was a TV show. It was on the G4/Tech TV network, and they reviewed video games. They said, quote, this has set the new standard for bad games. I have a score for you from Official Xbox Magazine. Now, there's lots of official magazines out there. Official Xbox magazine, official PlayStation magazine. When you see these magazines score games, you always first want to ask yourself, is this exclusive to the platform? Because if it is, you can bet that that score is going to be artificially inflated. Because official fill-in-the-blank magazine want to sell official only on this console game. Makes sense. But not even official Xbox magazine could muster more than this score. This score, mind you, the highest score I could find for this game after hours of digging on the internet. Official Xbox magazine gave this game a 3 out of 10. Friends, I am of course talking about 2003's, published by Majesco, a real game studio who makes real games. I can't believe I actually own this game. I have been looking for this game for 20 years. It is, of course, Drake of the 99 Dragons. A legend in miserable gaming. A legend in how not to try to make a media empire. Because you know how you've never heard of this comic book or TV show? They were made, but you have this game to thank for that. So we'll just put it up here on the shelf. Whew. How we feeling so far, gang? We got 1 down, 7 to go. Excited. Happy to hear it, AJ. Happy to hear it. Okay, game number 2. I need to talk about a period of time. I need to set the stage for this one. So we're going to go back and we're going to talk about the acting careers of 2 women. Their careers began in 1987 on TV. 2 actresses. AJ, trying to find an ASL interpreted live stream for the debate tonight, so if I'm absent, that means I found one. Whammin'! Alright, understood. Their careers began in 1987, and they became kind of pop culture darlings. In 1993, they established their own media company called Dual Star. You may not have heard of it, but it still exists, and it is quite wealthy. During this time, their TV run ran until about 1995, when they started branching out into their own media ventures with Dual Star. Those media ventures were a magazine, the fan club, merchandise. Mattel produced several lines of toys for these 2 actresses. They made a bunch of direct-to-video TV specials. They made a bunch of direct-to-video movies that were hugely popular. I cannot express to you, if you did not live during this time, you cannot understand how big these 2 women were. These 2 women are still very famous, and they are still very wealthy. Hell, they are wealthier now than they have been. But during this time we're talking about, in the 90s, these were 2 of the wealthiest, most influential, and most important and powerful women in Hollywood. I want to talk to you about the window between 1999 and 2001. This is also the time during which 2 things happened. One of them was they expanded from magazines, from toys, from their fan club that had all sorts of swag and crazy stuff, direct-to-video TV and films. They were still doing Hollywood films. They were doing TV shows. They expanded into the video game space. Also at this time, allegedly, the drugs began. Allegedly. But it would explain some things if true. 8 video games were produced from this media empire. Now, we're not going to touch on all 8. We're going to stick to one console. We're going to stick to the Game Boy Color. A handheld. How will we accomplish such a feat, I hear you ask? We're going to use our old friend, the Super Game Boy. So we're going to use our Super Nintendo, the Super Game Boy. This goes in the SNES. Game Boy Color games go in here. This isn't just a game, friends. This is a series of games. And I want to present to you the subtitles of those games. The New Adventures of Crush Course, Winner's Circle, Get a Clue, or perhaps Get a Clue, and Pocket Planner? We will be playing all 5 Game Boy Color games in, you guessed it, the Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen franchise. These were a motherfucker to track down. Didn't pay more than $1 for any of them. So we can see we have the New Adventures of Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. This is very much all 5 in one go. Yup. Not one of these is more than a half hour. So New Adventures, this is very much in line with the Before Drug Times, that picture at least. This was allegedly. This is very much their direct-to-video, like, we're spies, we're action heroes, like, just young girl entertainment that was good and successful. Then we've got Crush Course, we're learning to drive. Winner's Circle, what girl doesn't like horses? Get a Clue, it's a mystery. And we can tell the wheels had fallen off quite badly. White stock sticker, Pocket Planner? I don't know what this one is, but I'm excited to find out. I don't know how to display these. I didn't think this through. Put them against the back. Good enough. Oh boy. Still feeling good about this choice, gang? The Mary-Kate and Ashley gauntlet. Did you know their younger sister is Scarlet Witch? Oh yeah, Panda nailed it. And I was like, push to the finish, push to the finish. Actually, let's make this look nice. Curse these muscular hot dogs! I hope that looks nice. I digress. Okay. I suppose the lesson we learned here is stick to what you know. Hell yeah. I look forward to, 1, seeing if the battery's still good. 2, well, 1A, if so, what was the previous owner up to? And 2, setting an agenda with my friends in the chat. The same people that told me how to pull a chain out of a toilet. Right, Panda. Rob's sister, yes. I'm not kidding. If you weren't there, you do not understand how big and how successful the Olsen twins were in the heyday. They own an extremely lucrative and extremely high-end fashion company right now. They design all their own stuff. Oh yeah, get a clue. I threw out so many clues. No, I'm dog walking everybody up to this, so if you figure out what this is, good on you. But not everybody's gonna. Not everybody knows the Olsen twins. Not everybody knows Drake of the 99 Dragons. But perhaps you might know this next one, gang. So let's stick in that same timeline. We want to talk about 1999. And we want to talk about French developer Titus. Titus is a budget developer. Always has been, and were until they collapsed shortly after this game released. Oh boy. So, they secured a license. This kind of walks the line between, I don't want to say movie games being bad. That's more of an LJN conversation in the 80s. We're not talking about that here. This is more of like licensed games being phoned in versus knowing what you're trying to get out of something, what you're paying for. This is, Zeffy, I'm sorry to bring up your trauma. This is an AD&D Heroes of the Lance situation. This is a huge budget going to a budget game studio. You should pick the right person to run your race. You should pick the right horse if you're running a horse race. Don't pick a dog to run the horse race. You're going to lose. So we have a studio that makes only budget games. And a major license was offered to this studio to make a series of games. And the studio obviously said, yes, fuck yes, we'll figure it out. We got this. We got this. Look at all these games that we've... That's the thing about being a budget studio. Your success isn't measured in how fast did you hit the million sales mark. It's measured in being efficient in spending your money and making profit. So it's all in what is your profit ratio to development cost. That's success for a budget studio. And in that, Titus was very successful. Dragonlance is massively popular in France too. Logan did not know that. What a value add. Thank you. So while Titus was successful in that, there were two licensing groups involved. Another problem. Two people had their hands on the license to this property. This property is also a historically cursed property. And by cursed, I mean... A very famous example is Superman. So the original actor that played Superman in movies died young. The next actor to play Superman in movies, Christopher Reeve, suffered a catastrophic, life-altering injury at the time he was playing Superman. It was actually a dressage accident. He was like an Olympic-caliber dressage rider, which is a crazy thing and a true fact. He broke his neck falling off his horse in a freak dressage accident in an Olympic qualifying event. Thus, the curse of Superman also extends to the video games. Those of you who were brave enough to watch the Atari CRT stream saw Superman on the Atari 2600, which is a series of nonsense bleep bloops. Superman on the NES, nightmare, made no sense, so as confusing as the Atari game. Yikes. And I want to continue walking this cursed line, because this game is in fact a Superman game. I genuinely went back and forth on whether to do the NES version or this version. But let's go back to Titus for a moment. We have a budget studio. Maybe they could nail it. Their vision for this, how they got the license, they wanted to push the console it was on to its limits. They wanted this game to be the Super Mario 3 to the NES, the God of War to the PlayStation 2, maximizing the potential of the hardware. And frankly, they had a good idea. The problem was... Okay, let me take a step back. The two licensing bodies were DC Comics, obviously, Superman property, and Warner Brothers. Because this was a game made based on the Superman animated series that was extremely popular in the late 90s. You had Spider-Man the animated series, you had Superman the animated series, you had Batman the animated series, and you had X-Men. Two Marvel properties, two DC properties, they were unstoppable. They were media juggernauts. There's so many great X-Men Genesis games. There's excellent Spider-Man games on the Genesis as well. Maximum Carnage is incredible, also on the SNES. But when it comes to Superman, it continued to be cursed. Why were these decisions made? Okay, here's what Titus did wrong. Is they got more money than they'd ever seen in their lives. And they said, what's our specialty? Maximizing that profit ratio to spend. This is going to be a heavy lift. We have to put extra developers on this. How do we manage that? We give it to a team of rookie developers, people with zero or little game experience, and we spend all of our project management time fighting with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, what did they do wrong? Days after the license was secured, the PM staff, the project management staff at Warner Brothers, completely changed over. All new people, all new vision, looked at the proposal that was executed and went, "We don't like this." Hey, clench your buttholes as you listen to this, because this blew my fucking mind. Warner Brothers, a couple of days after cutting the check, calls up Titus in France and is like, okay, so we don't want you to make... Titus's original design was
This is cool.
Superman... Hydrate. King Jack is back, motherfucker. Welcome in. Thank you so much. I will hydrate. Thank you for the channel point redemption. We are talking about the games that are going on our Series 2 Community Redemption Wheel. We've talked about Drake of the 99 Dragons on the Wheel of Pain. We've talked about all 5, the quintilogy of Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen Game Boy games on the Game Boy Color by way of the Super Game Boy on the Super Nintendo. Wheel of Pain. But welcome in. Hope you're doing well. It's hot out there. Probably where you live, because everywhere is hot, so hope you're doing okay. Titus wanted to make a Superman game that was... Oh god, what was that game that had the Halo Reach access code in it? That's gonna land with nobody. Not Breakdown. Crackdown. It's a game where you're basically a superhero in a fully rendered 3D city. You can smash buildings, throw people around on the streets. It's what the modern Spider-Man games are. That's what they wanted to make. That's what Warner and DC looked at and went, holy shit, I think you can do this. Cut them a cartoonish check. Said, do it. Days after that check is cut, Warner Brothers, buttholes puckered, remember, Warner Brothers calls Titus and says, we would like you to scrap that idea and pivot to make this a Sim City-like, where Superman is the mayor making decisions, building a city. The fuck? Yep. Titus flat out refused. But they could not move forward with any design decision that was not approved by Warner Brothers. Not even Sim Soups, just SimCity, except you're Superman, but you don't play Superman. You just make decisions as if you were Superman. It's just SimCity. It's just SimCity. Warner Brothers drug their feet on every decision. We're talking like, we want this character model for this person, or we want this character model to be able to move this way. Warner Brothers sandbagged them, knowing that the deadline was firm. This went on for 2 years. 2 years of this, so that by the time they got to the end, they're like, oh god, we're under contract to ship this, we have to give back all the money we spent on god knows what. Not developers. So their tutorial levels became the first 2 or 3 levels of the game, and they did 0 bug fixing because they ran out of time. This game is almost as buggy as Rocky, that we talked about off the rip, and is a fucking experience. I cannot explain this any more than to say all the things I said. You just have to see this and go, the fuck? I, of course, talk about the legendary Superman on the Nintendo 64. Affectionately known as Rob Nailed as Superman 64, but that's not the name of it, Rob. It's just called Superman. We'll put this one over here. I tested it to make sure it works. It's worse than I thought it would be. Okay, I've got some media package to use here. So I'm going to be cutting in with some video as I explain this one. I've moved my notes. I'm now looking up here. If I'm looking up here, I'm looking at notes. We're going to go back in time just a little bit, little bit, to 1992. CD-ROM technology was taking off. I remember playing TIE... Oh, shit. I got it right here. I remember playing TIE Fighter on a computer that probably had 1 mote of cheese of RAM. but my mind was blown out of the back of my skull. The future of gaming, surely this is. We're going to be talking about one of the very first attempts to bring CD-ROM technology into the home. Sorry, quick question from Rob. What was the point of Warner Brothers doing that? Spite. That's it. So we have CD-ROM technology trying to figure itself out. This was a launch title for the platform in question. This game got put in a category of problematic games. Now, I'm going to go earmuffs on so I can make sure I'm doing this at the right time. I've got my timings written down. Direct your eyeballs to the screen. Now, this man is Howard Lincoln. This is C-SPAN footage from 1993. Howard Lincoln was at the time executive vice president of Nintendo of America. He would go, the number 2 guy in charge. He would go on to become the president of Nintendo of North America a few years later. But this is him testifying before the United States Congress about violence in video games. This takes place during the violence in video games moral panic. You can find some great pictures of then Senator Joe Lieberman brandishing a Sega Genesis Lethal Enforcer's light gun. It is goddamn hilarious. But let me show you a few seconds. This was Nintendo's stance. Nintendo was for families. This is a counterpoint to the president of Sega saying, we were making games on the Master System. Those people have grown up. They want kids' games, but they also want games for adults. What are we supposed to do? And here, Howard's going to talk about Mortal Kombat.
To meet our game guidelines, we insisted that one of our largest licensees, Acclaim Entertainment, remove the blood and death sequences present in the arcade version of Mortal Kombat before we would approve this game. We did this knowing that our competitor would leave these scenes in, and with full knowledge that we would make more money if we included the offensive material. We knew that we would lose money by sanitizing Mortal Kombat, but sanitize it we did.
Okay. That was the environment of 1993. It was the moral panic about violence in video games. This is a game not for the Philips CDI, good guess, for the Sega CD, a launch title. This was the first interactive movie ever released on the Sega CD, and the Sega CD was really the first meaningful attempt at CD-ROM technology in the home. That's a nuanced point, and it can be a more complex conversation about CD-ROMs in the home, but that's all you need to know for now. This game is basically Panda. I hope you're listening, because I think this is right up your and my street. This game is showing off the power of full motion video and is basically an interactive B-movie. This is a movie that is sort of, imagine you're in the perspective of the player character of Five Nights at Freddy's. You are jumping from monitor to monitor in this big sprawling mansion where a bunch of sexy teenagers are having a sleepover. Vampires, dressed from, I want to say, a thrift store, are trying to get them. This game has, before anybody gets a tummy ache, there is no nudity in this game. There is no gore in this game. It is purely a campy, silly movie that you can interact with by jumping from camera to camera to warn the girls about the vampires. If this game, I have gone through, listen to me, the hours I have lost to this research, I have gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. I am a master of the ESRB standards now, the ratings board for video games. If this game were released today, it would be rated T14. This is a game that caused a panic based on speculation and people imagining what they wanted to imagine about it. It's not bad. In fact, it's silly and fun. Now, I have to clarify a point here. I could, because I have access to both a Sega CD, a Sega Genesis required to play the Sega CD, and a copy of this game for the Sega CD. I am electing, for the first time, not to play this game in its original format. And to help you understand why I have made this decision, I once again want to direct you to Howard Lincoln. Here he is, back in the corner. I've turned his audio down so he doesn't blast the shit out of us. And my notes have gone somewhere. Okay, let's listen one more time to Executive Vice President of Nintendo of America testifying before the United States Congress. Here he is.
And let me say that for the record, I want to state that Night Trap will never appear on a Nintendo system. Obviously, it would not pass our guidelines. This game, which, as you've indicated, promotes violence against women, simply has no place in our society.
Ladies, germs, and non-gender conforming bacteria, I have eschewed the Sega CD, and I present to you Night Trap on the Nintendo Switch! Never say never. And look at that. Rated T for teen. Thanks to our friends at Limited Run Games for this one. Lost Media. And a big ol' humble pie to Nintendo.
I know this.
Goonies never say die, AJ. That's right. Why play a beautiful piece of history that has aged fantastically when you can do so with spite in your heart? Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Gang, we are halfway there. How are we feeling? How are we feeling? Excellent. Okay. No interpreters for the Satanic Panic. Oh, Jesus, I read those two things together. No interpreters for the debate tonight. Sorry to hear it. It aged out with the Satanic Panic. Yes, that's right. That's right. I had to comb through so much C-SPAN footage to find those cuts. All right. Here is a game. We're going back to 1989, just a few years back in time. This is a game that came out serendipitously 37 years ago today in North America. You can't plan it any better than that. This game was released by Bandai, and I'll explain the gameplay, but this is really more of a you have to see it kind of thing. This game I have been looking for with more fervor than any other game I have ever looked for in my entire life, and have been looking for a copy of this since 2005. 21 years. A genuine, earnest search. This game is not expensive. It is just hard to find. This game is a legend in its own right. It was produced by Bandai, but also Toho? Panda, thank you for the channel point redemption. Goonies never say die. That's right. Toho, the Godzilla people, had to give their blessing to the game for licensing reasons. It's not a Godzilla game. There is a deep hole we could go down on why. So the gameplay is real simple. This game is on the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the NES. My beloved. My beloved. I have a huge NES library. How did I not own a copy of this? Literally 21 years of searching, couldn't find it until a few weeks ago. Manifest. 6 stages. You play a character who has to walk from left to right across all 6 stages. You leave from your home, and at the end of the game, you arrive at a church for your wedding. You are walking from your home to your wedding on your wedding day. The people of the town in which you live are trying to obstruct your path. Full stop, that is the game. This game is one of the most ruthless and one of the most ruthless and difficult games on the NES. To me, it would be a toss-up between 2 games I would say this one's harder than the other game. I'll tell you what the other game is later. I don't want to tip my hand too much. The reason this game is so important is because we wouldn't have curated trash in the video game space in the way we do without this game. In 2004, before YouTube, a guy made a review of a handful of games that he had that were terrible, genuinely from the heart, as warnings to other people, and put them on GameTrailers.com. If you're old, your knees hurt from hearing that name invoked. It was Castlevania 2, it was this game, and it was, I think, 4 others. 6 individual videos. Genuinely, like, here's the game, here's the gameplay, here's all the problems. It will drive you crazy. Please, do not waste your time on this because it ruined my childhood. That was this man's earnest plea. He's still around, he's on YouTube now, he's got several million followers. He's definitely an artifact of an era. But his words caused people to seek this game out. And this game became the figurehead of the garbage game delight. I also saw this video and thought, I mean, I'd just gotten out of the army. It was 2005. I saw this and I was like, I have to have this game. I have to try it. I have to know. I have preserved my experience. I am pure. I've tested this game, but I had someone else test it for me. I have 21 years of searching. I have never touched this game. I am frothing to play it. This game has no Metacritic rating. The only scores I could find for this game was Game Informer did a retrospective in the 90s on retro games then, reviewed this game with absolute, I've read the review, the article, it's very thorough, with absolute journalistic integrity, and gave it a 0.5 out of 10. This game is the symbol of all things that are the love of bad games. If we had a ship, this would be our masthead. Friends, I of course, talk about the game made famous in 2004 by the man who would become known as the Angry Video Game Nerd. This is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The other game I considered here, but did not have the spot in my heart, in contention for the most ruthless NES game ever made, Silver Surfer, if anybody's keeping score at home. Macho, you can hold on to it. Perfect. Whew, okay. 5 done, 3 to go. We're really getting into the trash now, gang. Whew. No, it still could be Rampage. It's not. I love Rampage. I'm not going to beat around the bush on this one. I'm just going to show it to you, and I'm going to tell you why. All right? Whew. Here we go. Ladies, germs, and non-gender conforming bacteria, I present to you, on the Wheel of Pain, Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, this may be a Oh, I'm sorry. Ladies, germs, and non-gender conforming bacteria, I present to you Sonic the Hedgehog on the Xbox 360. My mistake. Okay. So let's take a step back because... What? Let's get those notes here. All right. This is the one, Rob. Not this one. This is the one, Rob. So this is a AAA title. This is a AAA title. This franchise, every single game that came out for Sonic the Hedgehog, not just on the Genesis. We had Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles. We move forward, we got the Game Gear, had Sonic Labyrinth, had Sonic Chaos. You go to the Sega CD, we have Sonic CD, Sonic Blast. On the Dreamcast even, we've got Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. If you've never played those games, find them and play them. They are how you run high-speed, frantic action, somewhat on rails, but intuitive. That's how you do 3D running with a bumpin' original music soundtrack, the likes of which Tony Hawk wish it could have. AAA all the way, bangers, bangers, bangers. There is the occasional pinball or puzzle matching game, but it was the 90s. Who didn't have one of those, right? We can excuse those. They're not mainline games. In 2006, this game, sometimes affectionately known as Sonic 06, they thought, wow, we've done everything. What could we possibly do but reboot the franchise? This is this game reimagined as a 3D hero platformer. It's 3D adventure, it's 3D platform, it's telling a crazy story. What about Sonic Unleashed? Sonic Unleashed came after this. Excuse me. Wizard 101 Leg End, welcome in. We're talking about the death of a AAA franchise. What is wrong with this game? Sonic has never recovered. At its best, it is an A tier, but typically a budget franchise now. Gone are the days of AAA. Now Sonic goes to the Olympics with Mario. Those are his best-selling games. Everything else, fodder for I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, but fodder for a particular subset of the internet. Sonic Frontiers was pretty good, you hear? For a budget title, Rob, sure. So why Sonic? We're going to call this Sonic 06. It's kind of like Superman 64. That's its informal name. It took on a more realistic tone. I'll explain that. The big problem was that it released unfinished. Now, you see the Xbox 360 on here. 2006 was very early in the Xbox 360's run. Patches were not a thing yet. Now, by the time you get to the end of the 360's run, we're talking like 2012. Yeah, day zero patches were starting to become a thing on AAA games. We can talk about the holiday launch window of 2012 when every AAA title needed a day zero patch and was still broken. This game was rushed to meet the holiday deadline, as well as it so happened to be the 15th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog. This game had to ship. The investors needed to see this game ship. It had a hard out. So what was on the disc is what's on the disc. It's broken. It's unfinished clearly. It's going to suffer from some of the stutter start issues that we're going to see in Superman on the N64. This game culminates, speaking of realistic tone, in Sonic the Hedgehog. A hedgehog passionately, intentionally, and romantically kissing a human woman on the mouth. Buckle up, because that's what you're in for. The moment that Sonic the Hedgehog ceased to be a juggernaut. How do I even introduce this game? Game number 7 on the Wheel of Pain. How do I even introduce this? This game, we have to go to 1994. This game was put in my ear by a dear friend and helped me see that I was restricting my vision when I could have had this. A game I know well of. Why not? In 1994, we were in the 5th generation, as it's known, of video game consoles. What was in the 5th generation? Okay, set expectations. The N64, the Sony PlayStation, the Sega Saturn. Was this game on one of those 3 systems? Let's think. Could it be a PlayStation game? Can't be an N64 game. We got one of those already. So we're down to PlayStation or Saturn. Chat, what do we think? We have any guesses? PlayStation? Saturn. We know I have a Saturn. I love my Saturn. What do we think? Where are we going? Where is this going? Where could it possibly be going? Saturn? Yeah. Strong guess by Zephyrin. PlayStation by Rob. Trick question. A third thing. Ooh, Logan. Logan, you know me well, because not only were the N64, Sony PlayStation, and Sega Saturn competing for market share, but Panasonic had entered the home video console market with the Panasonic 3DO. This game is, let's give it its Sunday name, the Panasonic 3DO Interactive Multiplayer. Multiplayer, speaking not in terms of how many people can play, but in being an all-in-one home multimedia solution. It plays all your CD-ROMs. It plays cable. It plays your games. Yeah, really rolls off the tongue, right, Rob? So the 3DO MSRP'd at $700 in 1994. In modern terms, that's about $1,600. I know we're having some conversations about PlayStation right now, but it still ain't $1,600. But think of it. CD-ROM technology was new. DVDs hadn't come out yet. And the PC was blowing up as an entertainment medium. How do we put that under the TV? At this time, let's take the N64. We had, what was under the TV? A cable box, a VCR, and the N64. Yeah, the 3DO had a horribly short run. What if we put all of those into one multiplayer solution for anything we could need? It's not crazy now. What's under my TV? I'll tell you. It's a PlayStation 4. That plays everything. Plays games, plays all my streaming services. It's got everything I need. If I had cable, it would stream through that. They kind of nailed it. But there are so many stories of things that have the right idea too soon in the video game space. The Power Glove was just the Wiimote. The Wii U gamepad was the Nintendo Switch. Things that come on and fail because they came on too soon. They wanted to be first to market, so they hit it hard, and they didn't think about it. They didn't build it out enough. The technology wasn't ready. It's a shame. Also a shame was that the 3DO was the brainchild of the then CEO of Electronic Arts. Nature's villain, history's worst actor, EA. He in fact left EA to spearhead this project. And I gotta tell you, he was right. He was just too soon. So why, aside from the price point, which was a hindrance, what happened to the 3DO? Why did it go away? It's an interesting contraption. So, we've talked about Atari on this channel, and how Atari blew up the game market by having zero QA on their games. Anybody could make a game for the Atari, and that led to garbage and AAA games being the same price point on the shelf next to each other with no way to tell. And that's something that Nintendo has sought to solve since 1986 with the seal of quality. Nintendo makes the games. They assess every game. They give you the blessing. Nintendo lets you bypass the lockout chip with some limited exceptions. But Nintendo controlled the stream. We will not be Atari. The lesson was learned by the games industry. And by 1994, forgotten and done again. Who's spending $1,600 on an all-in-one media solution? Not kids, adults. Perhaps kids that played the NES, played Atari. Now they've got adult money. And they understand this stuff. They understand the power of CD-ROM. They understand a computer is expensive. So why not go with the Panasonic solution? And if they go with that solution, maybe there's some kids' games on the platform, fine. But they're also going to want some entertainment that speaks to them. Adult-themed entertainment. Perhaps a playable movie, kind of like 1992's Night Trap. Sure, okay. Night Trap was interesting, caused a kerfuffle, but it's been a couple of years. We can do it right. Right? The game we are going to play is an adult-themed rom-com that is an interactive FMV. Or at least it was advertised as an interactive FMV because people paid full price for this game. Finally, an adult-themed FMV for me, the adult who's spending my $1,600 on this thing, or $700 in 1998, but $1,600 now. It's basically just a slideshow with voiceover that's more akin to a choose-your-own-adventure. So it has branching narratives. It's, okay, this may not land with anybody but me, but when I think of this game and I have to describe it, I think of it as Kentucky Fried Movie made by dude bros who only had access to a PowerPoint slide deck. It's zany. This game was received so negatively, it basically killed the 3DO in its tracks. It had a niche market, and it was starting to really do well in that market, and then this thing hit, and everyone was like, the fuck is this? That Atari bit that I talked about, you couldn't make a game for free. You couldn't get the developer kit for free for the 3DO. You had to pay $3, and then Panasonic didn't even check your game. You just ship it to them, they're like, good enough, they print it, boom, there it goes. They made the same mistake Atari did, and it killed their system. Now, the system itself is very fragile, they're very rare. I would love to own one someday. They're not that expensive, they're just hard to find. This game, same, hard to find. And I thought, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to talk about Lost Media. Once again, we are relying on our friends at Limited Run on the Panasonic 3DO interactive multiplayer by way of the Nintendo Switch. It is Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, a visual novella interactive rom-com rated M for mature. This is a journey, friends. A fever dream journey that we will take together. The dog is behind me? It does sound like a bad porn title. It looks like a bad porn title. Hold on, the dog is stuck. Honey, I know you don't go backwards. Can I turn you around? Okay. Okay. Okay, I have liberated the pig from behind my chair, which is just up against the wall. She went in nose first and stopped. Dog's gonna fart. Brrr, Logan. Okay. The final game, rounding out the Wheel of Pain. How do you end this beautiful cacophony of madness? The answer to that, my friends, is simple. You end it with the most important video game ever made. This one, I'm just going to take a tour around the town. Might be easy to guess, but I'm going to walk in the long way. This game also involves folklore, which is my shit. Okay. Without this game having existed, modern video games do not look like what they look like right now. This is a butterfly effect situation. In current dollars, the licensing for this game, the licensing, not the development, the licensing, the rights for this game in 2026 dollars cost $83 million. How do you make money on a game like that? This game was made by a legend in the game development space by the name of Howard Scott Warshaw. This guy made nothing but bangers. So naturally, we're spending a fortune. We want to make sure we do this right. Bring in the best there ever was at this style of game. This game was targeting a holiday release. So it was made in a very short run and sold 2.6 million copies just in December. It launched mid-December, so in those 2 weeks, 2.6 million physical copies. That's where we start to run out of good news and run into bad news. 669,000 of those copies were returned in January of the following year, and folklore sprung up about this game. I love an urban legend. An urban legend is contemporaneous folklore. There are so many from my childhood that just... the example I always take is blowing into the NES cartridge. How did we know to do that? Everybody knew it. It's even in every instruction manual on the NES. Don't do that. But we all knew it was the way to fix it. And hell if it didn't work most of the time. An urban legend is knowledge that everybody seems to know, but nobody can pin down the source of. It just is. It manifests in the cultural zeitgeist. The urban legend surrounding this game was that all those returned copies plus all the unsold copies, because the publisher of this game produced more copies of this game than even existed consoles on which to play it. The urban legend was that those returned copies, the excess unsold copies, were buried in the desert somewhere. This was something that if you were around in the game space at the time, or even the decades after, you knew this legend. You're like, I've heard that. And it sounds kind of true, but it's like a fun story we all told each other. Where did I first hear it? I have no idea. Where did the person who told me? No idea. But we all know it, and we tell it to each other. That is a genuine, bona fide urban legend, which is folklore. Here's the twist. In 2014, a documentary crew tried to answer that question. Where did this urban legend spring from? And they interviewed a man by the name of James Heller, who was at the time a manager for the publisher of the game, who confirmed that 728,000 cartridges were indeed buried in a landfill in New Mexico. That documentary crew worked with the landfill in the desert to excavate the location with James Heller in attendance, and they found those cartridges. That urban legend was real. Can you imagine paying $83 million to license E.T. on the Atari 2600? The game that collapsed the Western video game market. The game without which Nintendo does not pump the brakes, delay their release, and develop their quality control system, designing the pathway for every modern game we play on every console. Does not exist without E.T. on the Atari 2600. And this, my friends, is a redemption story. This game, I have completed. And you know what? It's not that bad. There are far worse games on far better consoles. There are worse games on this system. I can give you a list of a dozen. So we're going to walk through this game together. Does it have its flaws? Yes. Was it made in 35 days by one man? Yes. In exchange for $200,000 and an all-expense-paid vacation to Hawaii? Yes. But we unfairly judged this game by calling it the worst game ever made. It's fine. We need to remember the lesson here. Make up your own mind. Don't listen to what other people say. Make your own decisions. Put you by Powdered Toast Man. And the newspaper from Back to the Future Part 2. Well, there you have it, gang. Wheel of Pain Series 2, we are online, and we are counting anything contributing towards follows, subscriptions, bits, or the tip jar down here in the corner. Here it is. We're sending a hoodie to England. Boy, when Mr. Angry Carver wakes up from his angry nap, is he going to be... I don't know. Whew! Okay, when I said half hour, I meant an hour and a half.